Hello everybody. What we're going to be having a look at in today's session is some of the advice and guidance that is offered to us by our exam board, NCFE, when it comes to the Level 2 Functional Skills English Writing exams. So as you should be able to see on the screen here, this is obviously a document that is from NCFE. This is from our exam board, not any third-party website. It's nothing I've created myself. So the information here is absolutely correct, and this is from the exam board themselves. So the whole idea of this guide, I'm just going to go through it. So because if we receive some of these documents and we're reading through them ourselves, I think sometimes it can help to have a sort of human interpretation of just understanding what things like the learning objectives are and making sure the language is something that's a little bit more approachable and understandable. So this guide, it's basically in 4 sections. The first section tells us the types of texts that you could be asked to write in a Level 2 Functional Skills Writing exam. The second section is talking about writing skills. The third section is some various practice activities that I am more than happy to send out to you all. And then the final section is talking about your spelling, punctuation, and grammar, or SPAG. So, as a sort of gentle introduction, the first thing I want to show you is the official list of all the types of texts that you could be asked to write in your exam. Now, as we know from going through these exams previously, we are asked in the exam to write 2 pieces in 1 hour, 25 minutes on one, 25 minutes on the other, and then 10 minutes is a combination of planning at the beginning and editing and proofreading once the documents have been completed. Now, those 2 documents could be, as you can see on this list, a formal letter, an advertisement, email, leaflet, formal report, or an article. And therefore, if you want to make sure that you are comfortable knowing what every single one of these looks like and sounds like before your exam, that will ensure that you are fully prepared before you go in. Now, what it says here is what we need to know about each one of these. So the format. We've got a few videos already out there, either on the Atom platform or on our YouTube channel, that tells us the format of texts. So this is what it looks like. For example, if we receive a letter in the post and we look at it, before we even read a word, we know that that is a letter from where the information is placed. The same applies for a newspaper article or a poster. You see where we're going. So we need to understand the format, how each one of those documents looks. We need to think about the tone of the language, and that could be as simple as, is it going to be formal, businesslike, professional, respectful, or is it going to be more informal, more friendly, more chatty? Our purpose is incredibly important, and we do need to think about this before we start writing anything. So the purpose of a text is, why are we writing something? Is it because we are doing something to complain, to give advice, to give instructions, to persuade, or just simply to give information? But we need to consider these before we start writing anything. The next one on there is our audience. So again, it's who are we writing for? Now, this will influence things like the tone and the language. For example, if we are being asked to write to a friend or somebody that we know on a personal level, it would therefore make the language more informal. However, if our audience is somebody professional or like the local government, like your council, an employer, your local college or something like that, then you will be looking at using a much more formal register of language. And then the last part is the structure. So it's basically ensuring that we have a start, a middle, and an ending to all of our pieces that we write. So you can see from here, this particular document has some very nice outlines of what each of these texts should look like. So for example here, writing a report. Our purpose is usually to give information in order to help somebody or an organisation make decisions. So again, the most common ones we've seen on past papers are that we are writing a report to our employers or potentially the local council. Our structure, so what it looks like, is it should have 4 areas, 4 key areas. A heading, or title, a report into, our introduction, and then usually in the question we are given a couple of aspects that we need to consider, a couple of talking or writing points, and then a conclusion or recommendation at the end. Now, some of the features of a report that the exam board will look out for are things like our use of formal language, because if we are writing a report, it's very unlikely it's going to be for an informal purpose. We need to ensure that we are using the correct format and structure so it looks right and has the right flow. We need to ensure that we keep to the facts. Remember, this is not an emotive piece, it's not a highly descriptive piece. It should be a fact-giving experience. Making sure your meaning is clear and using correct spelling, punctuation, and grammar throughout. So then we have the actual sort of breakdown here. So this goes into a little bit further detail. So the actual structure, the heading or title should tell us what the report is all about. And I always start a report title with a report into, and then whatever subject we've been asked to write about. Our introduction should give a bit more further detail and should outline the purpose. So this is we have recently discovered that parking is appalling. We have recently, it has come to our notice that the class times need to change. We're basically setting the stall for our situation, for our report that we're going to be giving the information on. So in this case, the example given on this sheet says the report summarises the plans for the Christmas party arrangements following a meeting. That's it. It only needs to be very brief and to the point, very direct. The main body, so it's the longest part of the report. As it states on here, you shouldn't be using things like personal opinions unless you are specifically asked to in the question. So, for example, I think in at least one of the past papers, it has said that you would like to, they would like you to give your personal opinion on how a particular situation has affected you. If that's the case, then using I and your personal experiences is great. And some of the features that you can use are things like bullet points, subheadings, numbers, and it should include the why, what, when, where, who, and how. Our conclusion is basically, so we've expressed that this is the reason why we are writing, these are all the findings, so what do you therefore want the reader to do? Are you going to address it in the next meeting? Are you wanting for management to make some decisions? What is that final step that you want them to do? It also recommends that you should add a signature, name and date to the report as well. Ordinarily, quite frankly, I would put my name at the very top of the report with a date. As a signature these days, with most documents being electronic, it doesn't tend to, we wouldn't print it off to sign it, to scan it, to send it out again. However, if in this case the exam board recommend it, then always take their advice. So some of the activities that we can use for report writing, I'll just leave them on the screen for a second, so that if you would like to have a go at any of these, if you just pause the video, make a note of which activity you would like to complete, and you can always send these directly straight back to us via my email account. So that is it for writing a report. So that particular one just gives you an example. You can see how there would be differences between the different types of text. For example, if we're writing an email and it's to somebody that we know, especially if that's on a friendly basis, then we understand that the format would be that of an email. We have a to, an address box. We have a subject. Most email applications these days won't allow you to send an email without a subject. The tone of the language would be relatively informal because it's somebody that we know. The purpose is usually given in the question at the beginning of the exam. As well as the audience, it's usually stated quite clearly who we need to send these details to. And the structure, again, it's ensuring that we have a clear beginning, middle and end. Introduction, our paragraphs of information, and then a conclusion to finish the document. So these are all the sort of hints and tips, all the things that NCFE would expect you to be looking out for and to consider as part of your planning when you're completing a level 2 writing exam. So have a go at any of those questions that we put up a moment ago. Feel free to send them through to myself, and I'm more than happy to mark it as though they were a live exam question. And as always, if you have any problems or questions, don't hesitate to get in touch. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.